So, welcome to the latest episode of the Talking Balls podcast. The Snooker podcast comes out to you every Wednesday. I'm your host, Michael Wright. I'm on Twitter as Wright74, and I see my co-host in the corner. So, Lee, if you want to say hi.
Yeah, hi everyone. Lee here. Really excited about this episode. I've been a fan of this player for many a year, a world champion, and also it helps that he's Scottish. So nice to have Michael outnumbered for a change. So welcome.
That's very true. Yeah. We don't get world champions on here very often, and it's a real treat for us. And I hope that people who watch or listen to this get as much fun out of it as I'm sure we will. So big welcome, really. So as already said by Lee, a former world champion, but obviously someone still very much in the thick of things on the tour. And we're welcoming Graeme Dott. So hi, Graeme.
Hi, yeah, I'm happy to be on. Yeah, so it should be fun.
Good to see you, Graeme.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's good to see you. I mean, where are you at the moment then? What are you up to? How's your week looking? Just if you just give us an insight into what you're up to, really.
I'm actually in my snooker room just now. Obviously, I was practicing a bit earlier on, so that's all I've been doing. I've been practicing for the European Masters. I play on about another 5 days or something, so just practicing for that.
So how elaborate is your setup? Is that your own place then, Graeme, I'm guessing?
Yeah, it's just at the side of my house. Yeah, just the. I don't really know if you can see. I'll just turn around. You can tell I don't use Zoom much. I'll just take this off and turn it around. It'll just be easier.
Oh, nice setup.
Just practice the way.
Cool.
So are you doing a lot of solo practice, Graeme? Are you getting some players up?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I do probably more solo practice than play games. I'm practicing Fraser Patrick. I'll practice a bit with Fraser, and kind of when the season gets a bit more busy, I'll start practicing with John Higgins probably, and that's mainly about the two that I practice with. But mainly Fraser, being honest. Yeah.
I know the likes of John and that I've got the Stephen Maguire. I've got the container that they use for practice. Do you ever get games with those guys in there?
Yeah, as I said, when I practice with John, I normally go through to the unit and practice with John. Right. And when I play Fraser generally comes here to play. So that's the way I've been doing it. But as I said, I do a lot of solo practice, to be honest.
Has much changed about your practice, Graeme? I mean, a very long distinguished, well, not a very long distinguished career. It makes you sound much older than you are. But just the way you work out now and practice, has that changed much?
It probably has. I probably don't play as much as I did when I was younger. As you said, you've kind of said that I'm relatively old. I know you tried to back out of it, but so it's my neck can't really keep up with practicing that much. So I don't probably practice as much, but I think I do more than enough. I don't really think it's overrated, all this practicing for 7 hours a day, and I don't really think you need it.
Yeah, I mean, Graeme, you'll obviously know what's right and wrong, with the technique, but I suppose it's just sort of getting your eye in and
yeah. I mean, I do work on a lot of things. I mean, I've been working with Chris Henry for the past maybe like 4 years. I've left him this season. I'm going myself again, but I still do a lot of the stuff that we worked on. And a lot of it is mainly just kind of alignment and making sure that everything is still correct. Because if I don't play for maybe a week or 2 weeks, I could come back and I could still have a century break, but I might be off alignment. And a lot of my practice routine is to make sure everything is still working correct. Practice for a couple of hours and that'll do me. And I know everything's ticking over.
Yeah, I know you get quite interested, Lee. I mean, Lee's the player out of the two of us. I'm kind of, I'll rehash my record break, which is 27, all the colours.
You might beat me.
You can beat me with your eyes closed and a hand behind your back. But Lee, Lee is the player out of the two of us. But I know, Lee, you get quite interested in how people set up and the way that they, routines and we've obviously heard from quite a few coaches over the last few months as well about what they look at in the player.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think it's sort of fascinating knowing how the players practice and obviously the technique and the mental side as well, Graeme. How do you usually cope with the mental side? Obviously, you've got a lot of experience now, but is it a lot different now from back in the past when you're starting out?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's one of the things that I was always quite lucky with. I think kind of the mental side, I was always okay with that. Even like a lot of things that when I started working with Chris Henry, and he's big in the mental side of it, but a lot of the things that he was trying to tell me to do, I already done without knowing it. I just naturally done it. So I was quite lucky that way. Where I was quite okay mentally playing. For other players, it is harder because you can see them and they sometimes something goes wrong in a match and they're just absolutely gone. I've been okay that way, but I don't seem to do that. So, as I said, it's just making sure I don't fall into kind of bad habits when I'm playing. That's kind of what I try not to. If I was to practice 5 or 6 hours a day, I would tinker too much. And I would change something that I think, oh, that felt nice, and then it's the worst thing you can do. Is you think that's good, and then you hit a bit of pressure and you realise it doesn't work. So I try to avoid that.
Yeah, I mean, throughout your career, going back to sort of mental side, I've always thought of you as it doesn't matter who your opponent is in the seat, you're going to play your own game, and it's been that way throughout your career, and you've got a fantastic record against, you know, who we would say is the cream of the crop, like Ronnie and John. So that'd be true, wouldn't it? It doesn't matter who's in the seat; you just concentrate on your own game.
Yeah, but I think that's the way it's really meant to be. It's kind of the way it's supposed to be. But I mean, it is hard sometimes. It's a lot harder if you're not playing well. There's no doubt about it. It's if you go there and you're playing a match and you don't really feel that your game's there, and you're playing Ronnie O'Sullivan, it's quite hard not to be intimidated. And you think, because I don't have a game with me, but as long as I know that everything's working and my game is good, I generally don't really care who I'm playing, because I feel as if my game can put up with whatever they throw at me.
Yeah.
We've had that a lot, haven't we, as well, Lee, about players feeling pressure, but not just about their game and, you know, almost converting the practice skills onto the match table with the TV and the lights, but also about money. I mean, we've had quite a few players say that, you know, especially the lower in the rankings, I think that they're just really worried about the fact that, you know, if they don't do well, they almost go home empty-handed. You have to go quite deep in the tournament to win meaningful money. Have you got any views on that? I mean, obviously you've seen a lot of changes. You've seen kind of, you know, the impact that Barry Hearn has made in terms of some of the monies. Well, what's your thoughts on that?
I don't. I was probably. I think first and foremost, before I say anything, Barry Hearn has done an unbelievably good job. I'm not having a go at anything that he's done, because he's took the game forward. We're playing in places. He's done fantastic. But I've never been in favour of the flat 1-2-8 draw. I've never liked it. I probably was the only player, or sorry, I was one of the players that had the strongest voice and opinion that we shouldn't go down that route. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's good for the lower ranked players. And I don't think there's any change in the ranking list because of it, which was all the things that they said would be. They were saying, we're going to go to a 1-2-8 because you'll get lots of shocks, and the ranking lists there'll be massive differences, but there's no difference in the rankings. And there's no difference because you can't move up. You basically need to win a tournament to move up, because the money is so top heavy.
Yeah.
That you don't move. There was a time a few years ago where I get beaten the final with Germany in Berlin, and I went from there to the shootout, and I lost in the final of the shootout, and I moved up a bit of place. You really need to do well in a big tournament to move, and I think it's quite sad, because I used to really like. I was a bit geeky. I used to really like the ranking lists, but I knew exactly who was behind me, who was in front of me, and I quite enjoyed it. I liked playing, thinking, oh, Joe Perry lost, and if I win, I overtake. But see, now I don't even know where I'm ranked. Sitting here right now, I don't know where I'm ranked, because I don't look at it. I know I'm not near the top 16, and I know I'm not near falling off the tour in 64. So it's irrelevant, because we all play in the same round. And I know I'm not going to get in the 16. I'm only going to get in the 16 if I win a tournament. So the ranking list basically could be just ripped up.
And is that the same sort of right down the rankings? So the guys at sort of the cut-off point 64, and you know, it's so hard for those guys to move up as well. Unless
you're in one of the bubbles. It's a bit like football. It's like a team that can't win the league, but they're not going to get relegated. See the people like that, the ranking lists are irrelevant. It really doesn't make any difference where you're ranked. If I'm ranked 28 or I'm ranked kind of 63, it doesn't make any difference. So the players that are near the 16 can look at the ranking list, and the players that are near the 64, because they don't want to fall off the tour, are looking at the ranking list. But for everybody like myself, where I'm in between, it just seems a bit pointless. I just don't really like it.
Yeah, it certainly seems to be a struggle with the rankings. But given the flat 1-2-8 draw, do you think that sort of plays its part in the way the standard is at the moment with snooker? Because obviously these guys are getting used to playing the likes of you, Ronnie, John Higgins, and the 1-2-8 because they're drawing them. Whereas before they would have to maybe get to a quarter final, the last 16 to play these guys.
It's a good point, and there's two sides to this, because you've got the side that you've said there, where it's good for these guys to play us, and I'm saying us, I'm falling down, but it's good for these guys to play John Higgins, Ronnie O'Sullivan, Neil Robertson, and they get used to playing on TV and things like that. But on the other side, would you like to play John Higgins, Ronnie O'Sullivan, Neil Robertson when you've got a mortgage to pay?
Exactly.
They guys thought this was great. Oh, we're in the 1-2-8, we're all in the same round. This is fantastic. But ask the players that have fell off the tour for the past 2 years, and then the next lot come in and they fall off the tour. And it's so hard for these guys when they get on the tour to stay on the tour. It's because, see, if I fell off the tour with my standard that I'm playing right now, I don't know if I would stay on. 2 years, if I could get in the top 64 within 2 years at my standard, let alone a young kid who's not used to all this, because they're also getting harder draws. So I don't like it. I don't think the system works, and I don't see how they can expect to earn money to live with the system that we use.
And a good example of what you're talking about there, Graeme, is young Dean Young. He got his 2-year tour card. I think he's in his second year now, but you know it's just about impossible for him to stay on. It's like an apprenticeship at the moment. Yeah,
but the difference was the way the system was before. Yes, they would have to win matches to get to play Ronnie, but they're also learning their trade, and they're also playing people who are, without any disrespect to them, but they're playing people kind of at their own ranking to win money, instead of getting through into the TV to beat Ronnie O'Sullivan to try and win money. I just don't see how it works. I can remember when I turned pro, it was Blackpool. And I can remember my first year, I qualified for Dubai. I think it was 1994. I had to play 10 matches to qualify to Dubai. But I never at any point said, this is terrible. I'm having to play 10 games and these guys are at the venue. I thought that was okay.
Yeah.
But the young kids nowadays think it's terrible that they've got to play 3 matches to get to a venue. And that's why they thought it was great to be a flat 1-2-8 draw. But I don't know if you ask them now, the ones that thought it was great and they voted yes, would they have done it now? I don't know if they would
have. And you mentioned already a bit of a football comparison. I know it's not the same, but I suppose it's a little bit like the FA Cup. If you had all the top Premier League teams in the first round of the FA Cup, I mean, by the time you get to the third or fourth round, you're likely to have most of the top teams in there. Whereas because you get the first 2 rounds with the kind of the lower sides with a dream of playing one of the big guys, that's a story in itself if you get there, isn't it? But you've not got a story building up unless you actually knock out a big seed.
Yeah, and it's not a bad example, because the other teams are playing teams at their own standard, and if they do happen to win, you see how much they celebrate when the draw comes out and they draw Man United. So it kind of be the same. That's the way we used to play. So I would qualify and look through and say, "Oh, I'm playing John Higgins. This is brilliant," and I thought it was great to be in the same table as them. And we've lost that a little bit, I think, now, because they just show up. But the fact of the matter is, no matter what way you want to slice it, people are playing snooker for a living. I don't know any snooker player, any professional that's playing it for a hobby. So they're trying to win money. And I don't see how they can win a significant amount of money drawing guys like Ronnie and John.
Yeah, so are you in favour, Graeme? Obviously, you don't get any money if you lose your first round match. Would you like to see some of the players getting at least expenses?
I would like to see I know Barry Hearn doesn't like if you don't win, you don't. If you don't win, you shouldn't get paid. But they have won. They're a professional.
Yeah.
It's not the old days where you could just buy your ticket and say, I'm a pro, I'm going to pay my money. These guys have won. So I think they deserve to get something. And the money's so top heavy. Does it really matter if the guy that was getting 250 grand for winning a tournament is now only going to get 220? And that some of the money gets filtered down so that people can pay bills and expenses and have half a chance of staying on the tour. I don't think there's enough of that in the game. As I said, it's you get the odd shot winner, but let's be honest, the majority of players that win is Neil Robertson, Johnny O'Sullivan, John Higgins, Ding, Mark Allen. It's kind of the same players that are going to win the tournaments. So, whereas like the rankings, I'm saying you can't move. If I make the quarterfinals, it's quite a decent tournament, but I might get, say you get 15 grand for the quarterfinals. But the guy that I'm chasing lost in the last 32 or the last 16, he get 8 grand. I'm only winning 8, but I'm maybe 50 or 60 grand behind him. You just don't catch, you never move. So that was why I was always against it. And I feel I've been proved right. I think it doesn't work. And I kind of feel as if they know it doesn't work because they're also trying to always change it a little bit. It's a flat 1-2-8 draw, but we're going to keep the top 16 at the venue. Well, that's not quite the same. That's not fair.
Yeah.
Why should we need to play a qualifier? It's all supposed to be the same. And now they're doing the UK as the same as the world, where it's seeded, it's structured. That's the way the old system was. So we've got 2 of our biggest tournaments are the way the old system was, and the rest are. I don't like it. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
There's also the thing about the rankings. You've already said kind of how you feel about that, but I wonder what you think of. I'm always surprised that it's all on money instead of on points, in the sense that, you know, you could get a tournament that's worth an awful lot more than another tournament, but it doesn't always reflect the hard labour it's taken to get to the final and win it. So that doesn't. If it was points, it would be more maybe based on merit and consistency, and whereas the money it's actually the money that's determining where you stand, isn't it? Yeah,
it's exactly right. I mean, there was a time, I can't remember when it was, maybe I'm terrible for years, my memory's not very good, but say it was 5 years ago. I can remember Luca Brecco won a big tournament in China and he got a big check. Now, Luca Brecco then went on a run where he didn't win a match. He hardly won a game. And he was still in the top 16. And Ryan Day, at the same process, won 2 tournaments. And he was getting to like semi-finals and quarterfinals. And he was still behind Luca Brecco for that 1 tournament that he won. Because Ryan Day won Riga and Gibraltar where the money wasn't good. And I don't see how that can be right. Because he still won the same amount of matches as somebody else. He's beat the same standard of player. He should be getting the same points.
Well, this is easy so far, Lee, isn't it? We all agree. We all completely agree.
Oh, we're not going to agree for long. I mean, give me 10 minutes.
You mentioned football a few times. Are you a football fan? Have you played as well?
Yeah, big Rangers fan.
How are you?
Good night for you. Good night, Graeme.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I was there. They played well. Played good.
It's a new push at Rangers, really, isn't it? With Gerrard not being there anymore and trying to overhaul the rivals.
Yeah, we're doing okay. We're going in the right way. Certainly better than it was for the past few years, anyway. So yeah, it's been quite good.
Did you have to make a decision when you were younger? I mean, quite a few snooker players we've talked to started out doing a few different sports, and then they obviously had to kind of determine which one they were going to push for. Did you have that at all?
You would never believe the sport I played. There's no chance you would believe the sport I played, and I had to make a decision whether to keep playing it or go to play snooker.
Have a guess. Should we try and guess?
Yeah,
have a guess.
I've got a guess. Was it elephant polo? Because Scotland were world champions at elephant polo, so I thought it might be that.
Wasn't as extravagant as that.
Curling?
No.
Fencing?
No. Remember, I'm from Glasgow. You've just said
Yeah.
two sports there. There's no name.
I just have no clue.
But basketball.
Basketball.
Basketball. Believe it or not, I was actually very good at basketball when I was playing in the school. Even though I was that small, I was very good at basketball. And it got to the stage where I was having to maybe snooker pro-ams at night, and there was basketball tournaments on, and the coach for the basketball says you can't do both. You're going to need to pick something. And I ended up picking snooker, luckily enough.
Wow. You must have been quite young then, Graeme.
Yeah, I would have been. It was still maybe 13, 12,
yeah, I was
13.
going to say, because I was playing in the Scottish Juniors when you were sort of coming off of the Scottish Juniors and making your way in snooker. So I thought it must have been even before that, because you were pretty dedicated at the time.
Yeah.
No, I think it was under 18s.
Yeah, it was early. But I know that nobody would think that. Could they see the size of me and think, how could he possibly do that? But there was certainly no any slam dunks getting done, but I was
I don't think we'd have guessed that. We'd have been here all night, wouldn't we?
I know.
Never.
Not a chance. Maybe we need to put that out on social media before this goes out and just ask people to say what sport do they think that Graeme excelled at as a youngster. That's a good one, that.
Yeah.
So then what took you that way then? I mean, at what point did you think, okay, this is the way I'm going, and I think I've got a potential future here? Was there any moments or times you remember?
I think it was family members that noticed it before. When you're that young, you just go and play. I mean, I can remember my granddad and my Uncle George used to go and play at snooker scene in Parkhead every Saturday, and I used to sometimes go with them just to watch. And then there was one of the time I got a small table for Christmas, the usual that probably every snooker player starts with. So I started playing that, and then I was desperate to try and play on a big table. And I can remember George always tells this story. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, because he's convinced. He tells me it's true, but I always think it's a bit far-fetched. But he said the first time that I ever got a shot on a table, I potted like 6 or 7 balls in a row. And he said that other people were looking and going, oh my God, he can. But I did play on a small table, but I always thought that I probably wouldn't be able to do that. But he said that's what happened. And so they could see that I wasn't that bad. And they were looking for tournaments to play in. And there was junior tournaments at Reardon's in Glasgow.
Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I started in there on a Sunday morning, just playing like kids, and I just loved it. I just absolutely loved it, and just basically carried on from there. But I probably thought I was pretty good. I think at the time, I'm always, I don't know if it's a Scottish thing, but you never get kind of big-headed, and you always think, man, I'm probably not really that good. But the time that I thought I was good and I thought, I think I could do this, was I went to a tournament at Hemsby, see like the Pontons and things like that.
Yeah.
I went to play in the British under-19s, but I went to play in it with absolutely no hope whatsoever of doing well in it. I just wanted to go to challenge myself, the under-15s. It was the British under-15s I went to go into. And when I got there to register, they said that I was 2 days out of being able to play in it. I think I was actually, it was a strange way they done it. I was like 14, but you had to be 15 before a certain date or something like that. So I was devastated. I thought I was going to need to go home. And they said there's a British under-19s that's running alongside it. You can play in that. So I thought, absolutely no chance playing this. And I ended up winning it.
Wow.
Then I thought maybe I could actually play. So that was probably the time I would think when I thought I could maybe play.
And had you played many tournaments before you entered, obviously, that under-19s?
Probably just
tournaments.
Probably maybe just like kind of Scottish junior tournaments, but nothing big. That would have been the first proper kind of like big tournament. As I said, there would be players in that tournament that would have been, I mean, a lot kind of better than me. I mean, even the likes of Paul Hunter, Matthew Stevens, they were actually playing in the under-15 still. So it was, it was pretty good to win that. We were playing against really, really experienced players. So it kind of made me think, yeah, I probably could play this.
Yeah, you're not the only modest Scottish player around. So Lee on our chat with Alan Bell, the coach, Alan asked you at the end, Lee, didn't he? What's your best break? And what'd you say?
Well, I said it was a 147, but just one. Obviously, Graeme's made 2 in professional tournaments, and congratulations on that, by the way.
All right, cheers.
Recent 147 coming in the World Qualifiers.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it was a long time from that one to your first one in the 1999 British Open.
I know. It was actually funny because I actually said that. I never even had a 147 in practice for years. For some reason, I don't know why. I was never really that fussed.
Yeah, just not going for them.
A lot of the times I just wouldn't really go for them. I was never really that fussed. And then it eventually started to annoy me because I thought, how is everybody else hitting 147s? And I kind of started going for it. Because even the one that I had there was maybe a couple of times that I could have played for a pink and I went back for the black. So I'm going to try and start going for them a bit more often.
Yeah, and so obviously you've been around for a long time on tour, but you must still get that buzz when you're on for it and you're clearing up for the 147.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. I really enjoyed that one. The first one that I done could probably be. I know there's no any footage of it, but I done it against David Rowe. I don't know if you remember David Rowe, and every time that I see him, he actually laughs about it because it was probably the best, worst 147 that you've ever seen. It was just never in position. Even in the colours, I never at any point was in position. It was like an unbelievable yellow, a great green, a ridiculous brown. Every shot was bad. I won a car for that, which was amazing at the time.
Yeah,
it was really good.
It wasn't televised.
Yeah, there's such a unique thing to get. I mean, it's a different buzz you get, but yeah, it was good. It was nice to get one again.
We actually had somebody on social media ask about that. Obviously, we've been telling people that you were coming on, and a guy called, so it's a shout out to him, Chris Bogan. He asked about that, the World Qualifiers, the 6-1 win there, including the 147. And he said you were very complimentary of your opponent that day, and he just wondered on your opinions of him. I think this was Pang Junju.
No, I thought he was. I genuinely thought he was really good. I think he's one of the ones for the future. I think there's sometimes you can, because they are so good, the Chinese players, but there is some Chinese players you can play and they might actually knock in 3 centuries and you still maybe don't think they're actually going to be that good. There was just something about this boy's game that I thought was pretty good, because tactically he was good, and I think that's one of the strongest parts of my game tactically, and I thought he was keeping up with that. His tactical game was pretty good, and he scores as well. So I think he could be kind of one for the future to look out for.
Yeah, I mean, there's a rich kind of vein of Chinese players coming through, isn't there? Is there anyone else who's taken your attention? Obviously, Xiao Xingtong gets talked about a lot, and Yang Bingtao, etc. I mean, I don't know, you probably look for different things in players than maybe the casual onlooker. Yeah,
they're so good. There's no getting away from it. There's so many of them now coming on the tour. I mean, I think by the time I retire, maybe I would think in another 10 years' time, the ranking list will just be full of Chinese, because there's so many more coming through. They're just so good. It's hard to even pick one that you could say he's coming through, but I think the one that I played there, I would look out for. I think he was pretty good, and obviously the guy that won the European last year, obviously done really well. Whether he'll continue to do well, I don't know. But I was impressed, as you said, with that guy that I played there.
Yeah, of course, as well, Graeme, that they're coming over from China and they're going into the academies, Victoria's Dings and stuff, and it's basically all they're doing, isn't it? They're just playing snooker. There's no outside influences. They're there to play snooker, and the people in the academy are becoming their friends, and there's no outside influences for them, really.
The only thing that I would say is, because I remember being in one of the academies once, the only thing that I would say is, see if the Chinese players had the same kind of upbringing as like I had, going through the juniors and then going through the amateurs and then going through, they would be unbeatable. They would be, they would just be phenomenal, because they're actually so good just now, but they don't really practice properly, in my opinion. I used to go to some of the academies and They didn't even use a scoreboard. So there was no kind of, it was just they would hit a shot and then miss, and then he'd go on his phone, and then the next guy would go in and try and clear up. And as we would be playing like sweating buckets to win a frame, like really properly trying and playing money matches. And I think that's why they are unbelievably good, but a lot of them takes a long time for them to learn the game. And I think even like Zingtao, who's phenomenal, did take a while to eventually learn because he played so many rash shots.
Yeah.
But he's learning it there, as were a lot of the times like John Higgins. He'd learned it before he went to be a pro.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, they're just phenomenal.
So it's basically really when they're practicing with each other, they're just making break after break after break, and they're not developing the ring craft.
Yeah, basically that sort of thing. I think they've not got the same kind of thing that, as I said, the generation of Mark Williams and Ronnie Sullivan and John Higgins and all the other players coming up. I mean, you know yourself how hard the Scottish amateur circuit was at the time because it was so good back in the day. So you were really learning you were properly learning your trade. And if you look back to now, the Scottish kid that you mentioned earlier,
Dean
Young, how much would he have learned in comparison to the juniors and the amateurs back in the day when we were playing? And that's a hindrance for him because he's trying to learn it. He's trying to learn it on the tour, which is very, very tough.
Yeah, I mean, the standard back in the day on the tour was unbelievable. You know, the Scottish scene.
Yeah,
you must have played home internationals. Yeah, and they've just been littered with talent. All these teams. Yeah,
it was frightening, but it made you the player that you are today because you felt ready when you turned pro. As I said, as with a lot of the players, like you're saying, like the Dean Young and the Chinese, they're having to learn there, which can be hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
We did get some questions that, and I hope, Graeme, you take this in the spirit it's meant, because you could read this either way. But I think it's a genuine question. They're just curious about your thoughts on your career so far. So, so this was from somebody on Twitter called Bayes Bubble, and they said, having been a world champion before, do you ever feel that you should have won more? And have you got thoughts on why you haven't? I hope that doesn't come across really.
No, it's actually a good question. I get asked it quite a lot, and I actually do have thoughts on it, so I can answer it. I think deep down, I feel I should have won more. Not more world titles, but just more tournaments. I feel as if I should have won more, but there's a very, very big reason why I didn't, and I'm kind of played in the hardest generation that we've ever had. So for me to win a tournament, you've got to remember that the class of '92, who is still going just now, when they're in the peak of their powers, when I was trying to win tournaments. So if I happened to beat John Higgins in a quarter-final, I had Ronnie to beat in the semis, and it was so tough. And if I wasn't playing in that generation, I've no doubt I would have won more tournaments. But that's part of the reason why I didn't win as many, and it's probably part of the reason why Matthew Stevens never won as many, probably even Paul Hunter before, obviously, the tragic event of him dying, but probably why I didn't win as many, because we were playing in such an unbelievably hard standard. Because people talk about the class of '92 just now, but my God, they were animals. It was just so hard to win anything. So that's my excuse for not winning as many tournaments.
but it's absolutely valid, Graeme, because there was a tournament. I think you beat John, then you had to play Ronnie. You beat Ronnie, and I think in the final, I don't know, maybe I can't remember. I mean, well, there we go. There
was a tournament in China. The other tournament that I won. That's right. Other than the World, the China Open that I won. You're right. I beat Ronnie. Was it Ronnie in the quarters or John in the quarters? I beat some other good player as well. I can't remember who it was. Maybe Peter Ebden. And then I beat John. And then I had to beat Ronnie. And then I think I get Jamie Cope in the final. But then I had to knock two out. Now, I don't really follow tennis. I don't really like tennis that much. But I do know when you had Nadal, Federer, Djokovic, and Murray, the four players always won. Mm-hmm. Hardly ever did you get somebody. Now, there must be somebody who was really, really good then, who was number 5 in the world, who doesn't win a lot of tournaments. But that's the reason, because there's four unbelievable players that were winning everything.
Well, you're sitting there, Graeme, the 2007 China Open, you know, you had James Watt in that first game.
Yeah.
He beat him 5-2, then he beat Robertson 5-1, John Higgins 5-2, Ronnie 6-2, and then Jamie Cope in the final 9-5. I mean, that's incredible. Yeah,
that tournament was a lot more enjoyable than winning the world. Because I played really, really good, like really proper, played really, really good all the way through the tournament. But that's kind of my point. So when people say, why did you not win as much? Because you've got to beat Neil Robertson, John Higgins and Ronnie O'Sullivan all in the one tournament. It's tough.
I think it's a bit rough, you know, because I was scrolling through Q Tracker and I'm looking at your career on Q Tracker, and it is incredible. You know, the guys you've beaten, the tournaments you've won, you know, 3 world finals as well, which outstanding. So I do think it's a bit rough, but I've always thought of your career, I've always thought you've been underrated, and I've never seen you like that. I've never seen you as underrated, because you're a fantastic player. And I've always thought maybe you don't get the respect you deserve, you know, with being on match tables, TV tables, you know. What's your thoughts on that, Graeme?
Yeah, you're probably right. And I think the reason why you get underrated and things like that is because people just look for who wins. I mean, I probably would be the same. If I'm sitting watching golf and somebody doesn't win, and I would think, he's hopeless. But he's not hopeless. He's really good. He just doesn't really win because bloody Tiger Woods is winning or whatever else. Or at tennis, I used to think Tim Henman was rubbish. Just because he always got to the semis and get beat. And that's the way the world is. That's the way that people see things. And they don't see the reason why you're only getting to the semis and losing. But I lost in a lot of finals as well. If I could have turned even some of them into wins. But again, if you go back and you look at them as well, every final was like Ronnie O'Sullivan, Stephen Hendry, John Higgins, Neil Robertson. I didn't really get a final where the first final I played in was the final I won, Peter Ebdon. I played against somebody who I thought, he's Peter Ebdon, a fantastic player, but he's not any. I don't really feel as if he was any better than me. And all the other finals I played, if you went to the bookies, they would have been heavily odds on. So it's hard to criticise somebody for not beating an odds on shot. You know what I mean? So that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, that 2006 World Championship you're talking about, you know, you'd beat Robertson in the quarters 13-12. You know, he was coming back at you, 12-8 up. And then Ronnie in the semis, 17-11. You were 8 all at one stage and you won 8 in a row.
Yeah.
You know, did you feel a bit sort of tired in the final? I mean, I know you got a bit of a slag in, you and Peter, for that final. Finished like in the early hours, but you know, it's got to take its toll.
I've played in 3 finals of the world, and 3 times I've been absolutely, completely and utterly exhausted. I just find it unbelievably hard to get through it. I get through it with Ebdon, probably because he was every bit as tired as me. And then the game was absolutely pathetic. It was just a rubbish game. But at the end of the day, you're playing for the World Championships.
Yeah.
You can't exactly sit there and say, oh my God, this game is rubbish. I better open the balls up and make this interesting. And you just can't do that.
No.
And Ebdon had beat me every time we had played. And every time we had played, I got unbelievably frustrated because he slowed the game down, and I ended up losing patience and opening it up, and he would win. And obviously, I was coached at the time by Del Hill, and he drummed it into me. You're not going to get frustrated. I'm not going to get frustrated. It doesn't matter what happens. You're not. If he wants to play to 3 in the morning, you will be prepared to play to 3 in the morning. So that was kind of the way it went, and the game wasn't very good. I think one thing that I would say, in behalf of both of us, was the tables that year weren't very good, because I think remember there was a big kick up kind of at the last 16 where they wanted to recover the tables, and they were so tight. The pockets were so tight. And if you're tired and you're not playing well, the last thing you want is a table that's so tight. So it was a dour struggle.